Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another installment of the NTC podcast. We're glad to be back with you guys after a little bit of a hiatus, but time to get things rolling again now that the NBA season is back in action. Aaron Washington here, your host, as always. Thanks for joining this episode. This afternoon, I have a special guest here. This is Major Passons over at 5 Reasons Sports, covers the Miami Heat, also covers the Heat over on Sports Illustrated pretty recently, actually. So that's pretty awesome, Major, that you have the opportunity to cover the Heat in those two platforms. Seeing some of the stuff you put out, it's really good stuff. Obviously, a fellow Heat fan here, so I love that we have that connection there. We're able to link up on this pod. But thanks for taking the time to come over and discuss the Heat as well as a couple other teams here in the Southeastern Conference, man. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always a blast to talk about not only the Heat, but just the NBA in general. There's nothing better. Sports are better when basketball is being played.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more, man. So we're going to jump right into the action here. Obviously, here we're going to start with the team that we follow the most. That's going to be the Miami Heat. It's been an interesting season, to say the least, Major, to start things off. There's a few storylines here that we can tackle, but the first one that I want to cover here is just the way this team is playing compared to last season. And honestly, like every other season that I can remember with this team, so much different. We're used to a slog fest with this team. Everything is tough. The possessions go into the last second, running the shot clock out.
Yes.
This season, totally different story. Leading the league in pace here at 105 possessions per 48 minutes. Just getting up and down the court. Fast breaks are frequent. Certain players, like one I want to discuss here in particular, is really benefiting from the increased pace. Jaime Jaquez Jr. is loving this, man. He's getting up and down the court. He loves attacking the rim. He loves taking it to the defense, getting free throws. He's not a huge shooter, so for him to be able to get easy looks at the basket is really helpful. And just in general, this team overall, they're not really strong on self-creators in the half court, especially without Tyler Hero. So for guys to be able to get easier looks in transition, not having to face a set defense, that helps them a lot here, man. So that's what I want to cover first with this team. It's just the pace. But, what are some of your overall thoughts on this team? Obviously, the pace is one. Jaime's play is a huge one. He's been so improved, efficient, confident. What else stands out to you about this, how this Heat team is playing so far?
Yeah. I would not have believed anyone if they told me the Heat would be scoring some of the most points in the NBA and leading the league in pace and being fun to watch. Like you and me, we both probably always liked watching the Heat. I like dirty basketball games. I like the mud. I like it when it's close, but it does get taxing after a while, right?
Yeah.
This is like a breath of fresh air. It's not like you said, every shot's not in the last 5 seconds. They're not walking up the court. Anyone that gets a rebound is able to then take it into transition. In the Heat, what's something to mention too is like in previous years, they were terrible in transition. Like it was almost painful when they tried to go in transition. That was more painful than watching the half court offense. Now, I think mostly because of the players they have, Jaquez, Jovic has not been as good as he should be this year, but he excels in transition. Powell, Fontecchio knows what to do in transition. Larson, whenever he's playing. So I think their players fit this scheme a lot better. And they tried to do a little bit of a faster offense last year, and famously, Jimmy Butler didn't like it. So that is kind of playing into it. So it's not the biggest surprise in the world that they're changing their offensive philosophy. It's just like from one season to the next that you're going that big of a change. And the watchability factor is astronomically different.
Absolutely, man. It's so nice to be able to watch a team with I guess you can call it a pretty offense,
Yeah.
like a modern offense that has a lot of getting the shots up quick, letting guys kind of flow into actions. I'm sure you saw the segment on the NBA Prime last week where Haslam and Norman Powell and Bam went on national television and told people essentially, this is how we play. We don't call a lot of sets. We don't do a lot of pick and rolls. We just let guys kind of, pass and cut, fill in once guys cut, and let it be a free-flowing offense and let guys kind of work off of instinct more than just set plays, which, like you said, I think it fits this roster really well. Some of the guys that are kind of hilter-skelter type of players like Jaime and Pell Larson and guys like that. It's really nice to be able to see these guys thriving and feel confident. Fontecchio getting good looks off of this fast break offense is great too. He's been a great addition. But yeah, overall, I mean, this offense is 14th, above average, the fourth in defense and fifth in points per game. Like you mentioned before, you look at the teams that are scoring the most points per game, and the Heat are in the top 5. Really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, just really great. And if we're talking about guys that are playing well, we have to discuss Norman Powell as well. One of the best offseason pickups across the league. But Miami essentially got him for a couple of bags of chips and a yo-yo, I think. So if we're talking about Kevin Love, Kyle Anderson, I mean, that's a pretty low price to pay. So, I mean, he's been great, 23.5 points per game. The shooting splits are incredible, just like they were in Los Angeles. 47 from the field, 50 from three, 95 from the free throw line. So almost a 50-40-90 type season right now. And his scoring punch and self-creation is much needed on this team. It's been a bummer that he's been a little bit hurt so far. It's been a few guys, honestly. But when he plays, I mean, talk about a natural fit. He just gets up and down, and he just gets great shots. And even if they're not the best shots, he's just that good of a shot creator to make things happen for this team. So can't say enough great things about him. I'm really glad that he's on this team, especially for what the Heat had to give up to get him, which essentially was almost nothing.
Yeah, Norman Powell has been, I think, better than really anyone could ever reasonably expect. Obviously, he was great last year, but he's kind of been the catalyst of the offense. Him and honestly Jaquez have been the catalyst of the offense, but Powell is starting out games incredible. I think he's top 5 in points in the first quarter in the NBA, averaging double figures in the first quarter. And that lets the Heat then play not only off of his gravity, as Heat fans can remember Duncan Robinson for that word always coming up, but playing off of his gravity, he's then in rhythm and he's going. And to your point, the offense and scoring points, it does go along with the defense as well. When they're creating turnovers, they get those easy ones. That gets people into the game. But someone like Powell, it's kind of, especially in the first quarter, just give him the ball, let him get us started, and then we play off that. Because one thing I really love about his game is he's not selfish at all. So he's not always taking wide open shots, but they're never terrible shots. They're never bad shots. He's never forcing them. You never see a possession where he's over dribbling or anything like that. He fits this system just as well as anyone else. And he is just such an excellent shooter, like you've been saying, that when he gets his shots and when he gets his rhythm, it seems like he never even hits the rim. And then he's so smart. He's a very high IQ player in how he moves off ball, as well as getting his defender jump up and then getting free throws with the new hitting the hand rule, and just other ways of getting your defender in the air. He's been everything the Heat could wish for and better. And like you said, they got him for Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson, which Love was big in the locker room. Anderson had his moments, but that's a no-brainer, right? Anyone would take that. No one was really talking about it as much as I felt like they should for best offseason acquisitions. I think with the start of the year he's having, I think there's an argument you could say is a better deal than getting Kevin Durant, just based off of price paid.
Yeah. No, I agree with that for sure. He's been pretty incredible. So I hope that he can get well soon. Hopefully that injury last night against the Hornets isn't too serious. He was limping there a little bit. So if he's healthy, I mean, he's going to be a huge boost to this team whole season long. Like really, really awesome stuff. We talk about these players for the Heat that are really explosive and have, great offensive games. There's also some of the players that are a little bit more low key with their scoring, but they're still super impactful, on both ends of the court. Bam is that kind of player for the Heat. He comes in and he does the dirty work, and he's guarding the best player, guarding 1 through 5, defensive player of the year candidate every single season. He's been out, and now this tonight against the Blazers will be, I think, his second straight game missed since the Denver game. Unfortunate, but I mean, 19-8 this season. Something I've noticed, I wanted to touch on him real quick here, Major, because I've noticed looking at his stats every year, and this kind of plays into something I was thinking about beforehand, but every single season, his effective field goal percentage, it trickles down a little bit. He's a little bit less efficient. At the same time, his field goal attempts per season increase. So it looks like his role is changing. So he's more of like a focal point of the offense. But as a result, he's less efficient. And what I was thinking before that is like, Bam is great playing off of other great players. We've seen him in the Olympics, how good he was in that situation, playing off of Tyler Hero, playing off of Jimmy Butler. He's really good in that role. But if you're trying to force him to be a first or second option offensively, it doesn't cater to the type of his game. He's not a guy that's going to go out there and get 25, 30 points. Every single season, he averages somewhere between 18 and 20. That's really where he likes to live in terms of points per game. Doesn't shoot a lot, doesn't want to shoot a lot. He doesn't have that kind of mentality. He wants to get boards. He wants to defend, can score when called upon. But that's not his type of game. And this is where they miss Hero, definitely, when Norman Powell's out. And Bam has to kind of play, I think, above what he's comfortable playing in terms of like offensive hierarchy. I think it hurts him. And I think it also hurts the Heat a little bit as well as a result of that. So just something I noticed. He's having a good season. He's always going to be pretty solid offensively, but I just don't like how he has to operate as like a primary offensive option because that's just not who he is. He's not that type of big man, in my opinion. But, what are your thoughts on how his role has been, how he's played so far?
Yeah, I think he's always going to be a polarizing guy for a casual NBA fan or like a social media NBA fan, right? Because they don't appreciate, like you said, he's always a defensive player of the year candidate. I mean, there's legitimate arguments he should have at least one, if not multiple. He guards 1 through 5. He does all the dirty work. I remember seeing a stat last year that he was like by far the best boxer outer in the NBA. Like not even anyone remotely close. And if you watch him, you see it. Even though sometimes his rebounding numbers aren't as high as a lot of people would love to see, if you watch the games, he's boxing out the defender, and then someone else comes in and gets that rebound to end the possession. And that's a very underrated thing with NBA defenses and defenses in basketball in general. It doesn't matter how great of defense you play. If you can't ever end the possession, they'll eventually lead to scores. So don't discredit rebounding. Don't discredit like boxing out. So rebounding isn't only whoever gets the rebound. It's sometimes doing the dirty work. To your point on his offensive numbers, he is not just flat out. He's not a 1 or 2 option on offense.
Yep.
I believe he can be the second best player on a championship caliber team. I think we've seen that in the playoffs. With that said, he can't be the top 2 offensive player on that team.
Yeah.
He's got to be 3. He's a good 3 offensive option. He would be a heck of a 4 if somehow some team could pull that off. But to your point, he's better at playing off of this system. I think also fits him a lot better in the sense of they're not just giving him the ball on the low post and being like, you have to create your own shot. Some people are helping him create his shot a little bit easier. He's taking threes, which when he's making them is awesome. I just hope he doesn't settle too much because he can operate in the post. When he's aggressive, you can watch Bam, and you'll know this year, I think he's done a great job at it. I've not seen too many hesitant Bam moments, but in years past, you can watch him and you can see if he's thinking about what he's doing, his moves aren't as good. If he's not thinking and he's just free flowing, which this offense forces him to be, he's decisive. He's better. He's missed some bunnies this year though, but it's also not uncommon where Bam has like one rough offensive half of the year and then like just dominates the other offensive half. So maybe we see that a little bit this year, but I don't think you can ever watch the Miami Heat and not be blown away by the impact Bam Adebayo has. Even his bad games, even games where he's like 5 of 15, it's like he's always making some type of impact, doing some type of thing. He's the best screener on the team, which another underrated thing, especially if you're playing someone like Tyler Hero that likes using pick and rolls and stuff. So I think it's a lot of the little things. A lot of people say it's a cop out to say this stuff, but they really do add up, and his impact is second to none on the Miami Heat.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Obviously, we can talk all day about the Heat. We love this team, but there are a few other squads I want to get to here, specifically in this division. So the first of which is going to be the Atlanta Hawks. So the Hawks have had an interesting season as well to this point. Obviously, Trae Young is not a part of the lineup right now. He has an injury he's dealing with to his knee. So that's forced other players to step up. And it's been a mixed bag in that regard. You look at Dyson Daniels, who got that extension before the season. He's been called upon to be one of the primary options, and he struggled, honestly, to this point. He averaged almost 15 points a game last season. He was at 14, and he's dipped to below 10 this season so far. The numbers are down. Efficiency is down. So, and this is before Trae Young got hurt as well. So this isn't a new development for him, but he struggled in more of a primary role. I think the problem for the Hawks right now is without Trae Young, it's almost like a Heat problem where guys that are more suited to be maybe the third, fourth option are now forced to be number one or two, like Jalen Johnson, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dyson Daniels. Now these guys have to create more for themselves, which is not their best role. So without Trey creating good lob attempts for Jalen Johnson or good opportunities for kickouts for like Luke Kennard and guys like that, it forces those guys to be a little bit overtaxed offensively. And I think it's a big reason why they're only 4-5 right now. They're below 500. They have the 24th ranked offense in the league. Defense is actually pretty solid at 13th. I think that part of that is because of some of the offseason pickups they got, Alexander Walker, and obviously you still have Dyson Daniels. But I mean, that offense is just rough right now. Some other guys are still playing well, like Jalen Johnson, 20 points per game, shooting 60% from 2-point range. Oyeka Okongwu still a great backup. Porzingis giving them solid minutes. But overall, it's kind of a little bit disappointing. I think most people would peg them to be maybe like a top 4 team in the East after those pickups. Some of it, I think, is Trae Young being out, but some of it, I think, even before he was out, caused some problems for them. So just some of my initial observations of this team, they look kind of mediocre right now, which that's not where they want to be because they've been mediocre for several years. And I think they're ready to take that next step. And that's why they went out and made some of these signings here. So hopefully they turn it around. There's still a lot of time left, but in a conference to where it's pretty open, and then the conference and the division are pretty open, I think they were expecting more to this point in the season.
Yeah, and to your point, mediocre is going to make the playoffs in the East this year. But a lot of these teams, their goal isn't just make the playoffs. You want to at least be dangerous and see what you have in the playoffs. The Hawks, similar to the Heat, have constantly been in the play-in. The Hawks just haven't had the recent playoff success. They made one deep run after the bubble, but have not been able to get remotely close to it. Trae Young, he's a polarizing guy. I'm not the biggest Trae Young fan. I have said for years, I think actually the best thing for the Hawks to do to build for the future was to trade him when his trade value was the highest. I think they could have got a lot of pieces. I really like Jalen Johnson. I think he's like a Swiss Army knife type of player. He's my favorite player on the Hawks. Porzingis is a good pickup, but I think a lot of times too, he's not as good as he used to be. And to your point, he's a little bit higher in the offensive ranking than he probably should be right now, especially with Trae Young out. So Nickeil Alexander-Walker, underrated. He's a good role player. So I think you look at their team and you have some names, and a lot of people are really high on them. I wasn't super, super high on them. I think they almost have identity issue where it's you see some of these teams where they keep adding players that you're they're pretty good, and then they never do anything whenever they join that team. Or even if they have individual good season, it still doesn't ever put to team success. The Hawks, I felt like that for a while. I think having Dyson Daniels, and like you said, he's starting out slow, but it's only been 9 games. So people have 9-game stretches where they struggle, and it stands out more when it's the first 9, right? So I think I would bet for him to turn around, but something like him, Jalen Johnson, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, these guys that give a little bit more effort on the defensive end, I think will do huge wonders over a course of a season and maybe make them a little bit more dangerous in the playoffs. They've kind of been the anti-Miami Heat, and when you were saying the Heat have been good defensively but not good offensively, the Hawks have been the exact same. They're a little bit more pretty to watch, but they let up a lot of points too. They score up a lot of points. I think they're starting to turn that around a little bit. I think they see that the East is weak. I would not be surprised if maybe we see even something else. If they're struggling at trade deadline and someone comes available, I wouldn't honestly be surprised. They seem like a team that's really trying to compete right now. And to your point, it hasn't worked out too well. But I think there's plenty of time to turn it around. They got a lot of intriguing players that just haven't seemed to mesh yet.
Yeah, I can also honestly see them making a move as well. Just looking at the state of the conference, I think they saw what Indiana did last season. A team that doesn't have a bunch of big names. but they came out here and they caught people by surprise, and they made a run and almost won a championship. They were, as close as you can get without winning. So I think the Hawks saw that and they're like, okay, we have a good foundation. We have the star point guard, just like the Pacers had. We have a great forward, just like the Pacers had in Siakam, and a lot of great pieces around them. So let's go ahead and see what we can do. And I don't blame him for that, especially when you're at a crossroads with Trae Young and you're not sure if he's the guy for you going forward. Hey, let's give him the best roster we've ever given around him and see what he can do, see what these guys can do together. So, looking at all the pieces together, I think, if Trae Young is playing at the peak of his powers and can really enable those guys to be who they want to be, who they should be, then they're in a great spot. But without him, I think the next few weeks they're going to struggle. I think they're going to be around 500. He comes back, it's a different equation. These guys are put back in spots where they can be successful. And, Porzingis and Nikhil and these guys keep doing what they're doing, averaging 16 to 17 a game, shooting well. I think it's going to bode well for them. You mentioned their play style. This season, it's more of a defensive focus. I think it's going to help them over the course of the season, 82 games. There's going to be times where they don't shoot well, but if you're getting stops, it's going to keep you in the game. We know about this. The Heat traditionally in the past, sticking with teams they shouldn't, for better or worse, struggling against bad teams, playing well against good teams. So I think the Hawks will be in that same boat. But I think when Trae comes back, if he's healthy, I want to see what this team can do. I would say second round at minimum. If these guys are playing well together, they're healthy. That's what I expect from them. So, definitely an interesting season here. I think their best basketball is to come. We haven't seen the best yet. It's too early to panic. Been disappointing, but I think there's a lot more to come from this Atlanta Hawks team with a lot of good pieces on this roster. Yeah. Today's NBA, that's what you need to be successful. One or two really great players, a lot of really solid players around them. That's the recipe for success.
For sure. To your point, their best basketball is definitely ahead of them. They'll definitely figure it out, and they will be in that playoff mix. And I agree with you. If they play at the best of their capabilities, there's no reason that they shouldn't win in the first round. They have built a much better roster than they have in the past. I'm still skeptical of a Trae Young-led team. I think we've seen him. He's super hot, super cold, and that matters in a 7-game series. A little bit more than over an 82-game season. But I'm excited to see it. I think Trae Young, like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of him, but there's no denying that whenever he is on fire, there are few people more exciting to watch because he'll be hitting those 40-footers. And then now he has other offensive threats off of him, even like Kennard and even Porzingis, then add Jalen Johnson and Nikhil Alexander-Walker. They then just get so freed up on the offensive end because he is drifting everyone out. He can then break down his guy, and he's a good passer, so he'll find people that are open. So give him some time to figure it out. I'm skeptical. I don't think 9 games is too big of a change in what you're going to think of a team, for better or for worse, right? So if you're really high on the Hawks, still be high on the Hawks. If you weren't, obviously you can reevaluate your opinion, but I don't think that means you're right through 9 games. It just means we've played 9 games, and teams don't always start out great.
True that. There's a lot of time left, so we'll see how they go, but I think it's going to be interesting to follow this team for the rest of the season. Interesting. While we're on the subject, we're going back to Florida, talking about the Orlando Magic, and another disappointing team to this point. Through the few games we've played, Paolo Banchero, I think, is kind of one of the guys I've been looking at, and it's been a little bit, not that he's been bad, but it hasn't been that leap that some people were expecting, or all NBA type play. Last season before he got hurt, I mean, he came out just on fire, and to this point it's been solid, but I think he still kind of falls into some of those same habits to where it's like, okay, let me get this turnaround mid range over a smaller player, not attacking the rim sometimes where he should. So that's been a little bit frustrating to see from him. Michael Pina from The Ringer had an article about him talking about, if this is the best Paolo gets, can they get to where they want to go, in terms of success? And, not sure, honestly. I mean, still really good pieces around him. Franz Wagner has been great, doing what he does. I mean, you can peg him down for 25 and 5 pretty much every game. One of the most solid, consistent players in the league. So I love what I've seen from him. Desmond Bain, another big story. Last night he did do very well. They played the Boston Celtics, and he got what he needed. 22, 6 and 7 in that cup game, got the win for them. That was huge. Before then, he'd only been averaging 7 points on 34% shooting from the field and 33 from three. If you're giving up multiple unprotected picks, you're going to need more than that. And if you've been one of the worst offensive teams in the league the past few years, you're also going to need more than that. So, I mean, to this point, it's been the same 20th offense, 12th defense. That I think is even worse than the offense because they've been top 5 defensively. If you're going to be 12th instead of 5th and your offense is still going to be bottom 3rd, you're not going to do very well. So they're 4-5 right now. Been a little bit better the past few games, but they're still 19th in three-point shooting at 35%, 26th in three-pointers attempted, 23rd in free throw percentage, and 21st in turnovers. It's 16, almost 17 a game. So offensive measures across the board are very subpar still, even with Bain. They brought in Tyus Jones for offensive punch. That has not panned out whatsoever. He's only playing 13 minutes a game. Anthony Black has pretty much taken what should have been his spot in the rotation. Anthony Black is playing 27 minutes a game, so they're relying a lot more on him, which says a lot to Black's improvement, but also to Tyus Jones being very subpar. That's not great. So some guys have been really solid, but on the other hand, some guys have been disappointing, and they need to figure out that offense because, if you want to be a true contender, at least in the East, you can't have a bottom 3rd offense and, be one of the worst three-point shooting teams. So maybe there's another deal to be made. I'm not sure. But, they're going to need more, especially if they're not going to be the same defensive team that we're used to seeing, for that unit. So something's got to change if they want to be top 3, top 4 team in this conference.
Yeah, and they absolutely should be a top 4, minimum, like top 5 team in this conference, right? They made a big move. They were one of the top teams in the conference last year. They made a big move to get Desmond Bain. Like you said, they gave up a lot to get Bain. And it's just not panned out so far. But similar to the Hawks, I think it's going to work out after a couple games. Their best basketball is ahead of them. To your point, though, it is really interesting that their defense is not top 10 at minimum. Like, I would think they have a bad defense. That's the number 9 defense. Like, that's bad for Orlando, right? 13th. That's honestly unacceptable. That was their identity, right? Franz, he is my favorite player on that team. He is just so smooth, so smart. He can do a little bit of everything on the offensive end. I think when Orlando's at their best, Franz is at his best. I would lean into him a little bit more. Banchero, a lot of people were expecting a huge leap from him. And like you said, he kind of hasn't done that yet. But he's a great player. So I think he'll figure it out a little bit more. I wonder if the acquisition of Bain is kind of throwing off the rhythm as they try to figure out how to play with that. But I think they'll work it out. Bain's been an excellent shooter his whole career. Very good, like, secondary scorer off of stars. He really should be like the perfect player to pair alongside Banchero and Franz. Because he should just be able to tee off on the defense and just get open looks from 3. And if you get Desmond Bain open looks, you are sitting pretty, right? And he's a tough player too. So he fits like that culture DNA of Orlando, of being that tough team that they've been recently. So I think they should figure it out. To your point, though, they also need other players to step up. It's not just those 3. They need others to play better. They did let Cole Anthony go too, and Cole Anthony has been pretty solid for the Bucks. So I think that kind of hurts them a little bit too when you kind of need a better point guard play, and then the guy you let go has been outperforming the guy you brought in. So that's not ideal. I do like Tyus though. So we'll see if he's able to turn it around and be the contributor they thought that they were getting with him. But I think they might be one of the most disappointing teams, or if not the most disappointing team, based off like my expectations for them. they definitely should be more in the mix, and certainly not third in this division.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. I mean, you look at what the pieces they have and, their expectations, they're probably the farthest away from where they expected to be
Mhm.
in the NBA right now. So, I mean, a lot of time to turn it around. And that's a good point about Bain. I'm sure they're still kind of tinkering with some things, trying to figure out how to incorporate him. Probably one of the reasons why he's struggling himself to shoot the ball. So once he gets more settled in and gets more games under his belt, I'm sure he'll be better. I mean, you don't see a career, probably 40% ish, for his career come in and all of a sudden be subpar. I mean, it just doesn't happen.
Mhm.
So, got to go based off of the bigger sample and trust that he'll get a shot back. He got it back last night. So that's more what we expect from him. And other guys, I'm sure, will benefit from that as well. More space to operate. De Silva has been solid. One of those other guys, and Wendell Carter does what he does. So, I mean, they have other guys they'll stay consistent and be good for them. So, not I wouldn't say I'm too worried about them. A little disappointed,
Mhm.
but too early to make any harsh judgments about them. I'm sure they'll turn it around here pretty soon. Let's go rapid fire for two more teams here in the Southeast Division Major. Charlotte is going to be the first of them. And, this team goes as LaMelo goes. I think that's kind of like the moral of the story here. He's out again. Shocker. It's just disappointing to see that as soon as he gets going, about the same
Yeah.
point every season, I feel like ankle injury. He's out. He's going to be out. He's going to miss at least 20 games, 30 games every year. So the other guys have to step up, and they just haven't had enough support in that area. Brandon Miller has also been out. That's another disappointing development. But they still have Miles Bridges, who's been great as always. I think he's one of the more underrated players in the league. 20-7, almost 4 assists a game, paired with near league average shooting from three. So, I mean, you put all that together, I think he's, I want to say maybe a little bit, not quite as good, but in the same realm as like a Jalen Johnson in terms of like production. Really solid four that can, of
Mhm.
course, fly over everybody, but also, just kind of get a shot from three. That's really solid. But I think the biggest part of the season for the Hornets, the most encouraging part, has been the rookies. You look at Con Knipple, he brought his savvy over, he brought his great footwork, his quick decision making, his great shooting is all translated. He's almost shooting 50, 40, 90. I know it's a small sample, but super efficient. Perfect guy for the Hornets. I love the draft picks so far. On and off the ball, great player. He can play next to stars. He can get his own. I think he's going to have a fantastic career. He's been really solid. And then Ryan Kalkbrenner, the center for the Hornets, averaging 9 and 6, almost 7 rebounds a game, 2.6 blocks. I mean, that's super impressive. He is 23, so you expect him to come in and be pretty solid off the bat, but super efficient, great rebounder, great shot blocker. I was worried about that rotation, not having Mark Williams there anymore, relying on like Mason Plumlee and guys like that. But Kalkbrenner's come in and said, "Hey, I got this." So that's really encouraging. So those have been the primary signs so far. They're only 3-6. 11th offense. The offense has been solid to this point, but if LaMelo's out, obviously that goes down. 27th defense. It is what it is. It's the Hornets. They don't have that kind of identity. So exciting team, fun team. I like watching them. But if you're expecting anything more than, being a plucky team that knocks somebody off every once in a while, you're going to be disappointed. That's who they are.
Yeah, LaMelo is special. He's in several ways, to be honest.
Mhm.
Sometimes he makes just the most bonehead plays and shot decisions,
Yep.
but man, that guy is so talented that he is so much fun to watch. He will have like the most dazzling pass you've ever seen, and then follow it up with like a play where you're legitimately like, what went through your brain to to think that that would ever work.
Right.
And it's so entertaining though. He is so much fun to watch. He is the reason you watch the Hornets. But I do want to shout out Con Knipple. That guy is going to be super underrated his whole career. I
Yep.
already know it because for whatever reason, people coming out of the draft were like saying he's not going to be a good player. Nothing's going to translate. Like
Mm.
you watch all of his stuff at Duke, that's a perfect, at minimum, role player.
Yeah.
He's already almost shooting 50, 40, 90. He's got decent size. He's got good attitude and mentality. He's not just an offensive guy either. I'm not saying he's a showstopper on the defensive end, but if you watch him, he's the guy diving on the floor. Even when he was the star, or one of the stars at Duke, he's still diving on the floor. It could be a 20-point game. He's still diving on the floor. That shows your mentality, and that stuff, people don't always pay attention to it. That stuff matters when that transition to college to the NBA.
Yeah.
So I've been a fan of his, and I'm a North Carolina guy, a North Carolina fan, and it pains me whenever I watch like Duke, and I'm like, I like that guy, and
Yeah.
that doesn't happen often because I'm a hater, right? And
That's fair.
Konkanippel is one of those guys that I was like, I like him. That was my dream draft scenario if the Heat didn't make the playoffs. I wanted Con. I think he would have been perfect in Miami, and he really fits any team, to be honest with you. And this team's not good anyways, and then you lose one of your more talented guys in Brandon Miller, you're not going to be good. But like you said, they could be any team in the NBA on any given night because LaMelo might drop 50. So
for sure.
Not consistent though.
Right. Not consistently in the lineup, not consistently shooting well. Yeah. But when he does, he's exciting. So great league pass team, but I think they're still a few pieces away from being a true contender, even in a weak Eastern Conference. One last team here, the Washington Wizards. They also have some young guys that I want to shout out. They're at the bottom of the league right now, only 1-8, 28th offense, 29th defense. I mean, they're still just kind of figuring out what they have. They're building something right now. We don't know what, but it kind of starts with Alex Sarr right here in terms of the outlook for the future. This is one of the most improved players in the league right now. Watching him on a nightly basis is a lot of fun. He's seeing turnaround jumpers. He's getting aggressive, getting into guys' chests. He's going toe-to-toe with Embiid and holding his own. 19 and 8 averages. So around Bam production right now, super impressive. 2.4 blocks a game. So his defense hasn't fallen off. He's still consistent on that end. Great touch, great footwork, getting more opportunities to score, even hitting some threes. Really solid development there. And then Trey Johnson as well. This is a guy that's a natural shooter. He's got to come in and hit shots. He gets nothing really inside of the arc or in the paint. But, if you need a guy to go get you some good looks and just shoot the ball at a high level, he's the guy for it. So I'm not sure if his ceiling is just good sharpshooter or something more than that. But right now, I mean, I like what I've seen from him, and I think he's going to have a solid career. One point of concern has to do with Cam Whitmore. He was a guy that they traded 2 second-round picks to get, and his minutes just keep dwindling. I think it's part of maybe an attitude problem that he's having right now, just isn't really engaged. His last 5 games, 15, 16, 11, 8, and then 5 minutes last night played against the Cavs. Don't think he's hurt or anything. It's just he's just not getting the playing time. I think the coaching staff is just losing faith in him. They don't like what they've seen from him. He's just too much of an offensive slanted player, just wants to get his own. He's not a team player. Don't know for sure, but that's what it seems like to me and why he's not getting the minutes. So just a couple of pieces there were a positive and then a negative. But if Alex Sarr keeps doing what he's doing and turning into a semi, if not a star player, man, that's a success for the Wizards this season. They can win 5 games. But he takes that leap, oh man, that's all you can hope for. If you're a Wizards fan, you're a Wizards organization, that's what you want to see. You want to see building and growth because winning basketball is still a ways away. So it's development. So if these guys are developing, you're doing something right.
Yeah, and to your point, they're on pace to win something like 8 games. So they really are. They are far away from when they had their John Wall days. They are far, far away, and it doesn't feel like they're getting back soon. They do have some good, intriguing talent. Like you said, Trey Johnson, and Adele and Digital Adele and 5 Reasons Sports has been like praising Trey Johnson nonstop. And so that's his big guy of like his underrated guy in this draft. So if he turns into a star, I know Adele's going to claim that one as calling it. And just to throw out there for Adele, he was the one saying Stephon Castle should have been the #1 overall pick and how great he would be. So he's had a pretty good track record. That's just one of many. Then it is kind of like funny. I like pulled up the roster here, just like looking at it. They have a ton of young guys, And then it still cracks me up that they randomly have like Chris Middleton, Marvin Bagley, CJ McCollum has been
CJ.
awful for them.
Yeah. Well, he did go off last night though. He had a pretty strong showing last
Yeah.
night, at least in the first half.
Yeah, you need though, like I guess they probably don't want to win too many games. I guess
Right.
that's
If
like
he's
the
bad, they're
mentality.
like, nah, that's fine.
Yeah. But if you, in my opinion, you would want like a Chris Middleton, you would want a CJ McCollum, Chris Kispert, those type of guys that if they could show any value at all to like then maybe go to a contender at the deadline or go
Yeah.
to a team that thinks they
Flip
need
him.
a little bit more.
Right.
I think that's why you have them, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they want their locker room presence or something like that. But Corey Kispert, he's a guy that I could see being traded because he's not super young. He's not real old, but they're never going to be able to use him in any meaningful way in the sense of like competing. And if you can get something back for him, you should do it.
Right.
But Sar is the big story here. You're kind of starting to see why he was drafted so high and why people loved him coming out of his, I guess he didn't come out of college, but coming out of France. So I think he's kind of taking that little next step. The hard part in the NBA is knowing, he's taking a step, but how big of a step is it really? Because let me pull up their record. You're 1-8.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not transition to winning basketball, and no one is expecting it to be. I'm not saying it should be.
Yeah.
I mean, the roster around him is not good enough, but
Mm-hmm.
the stars put up those levels at winning basketball when the defense and the other team is 100% engaged, right?
Yeah.
Every team's good in the NBA. Every team would kill the best college team,
Mm-hmm.
but you think OKC goes and plays the Wizards with the same mentality that they go play Denver? It's just not the
Probably
same,
not.
right? So I'd love to see Sar in the next couple years keep building upon this. And the next thing you know, he's averaging 20 and 10, and they're competing for the playoffs with all their young guys, and they'll probably get a really good pick for this year and next year too.
Yeah.
So that's what you want to see. To your point, it's all about development. I covered the G League for like 2 years for the Skyforce, and people would get caught up in wins and losses, and even get caught up in big stat numbers. But it's a lot of times seeing those little things that transition. It's not about wins and losses for Washington right now. They know they're not going to be close.
Yeah.
It's all about seeing those little things, seeing what we have. Who should we build around? Who should we maybe trade? Who should we maybe move off of? Seeing what we have. And I think they're seeing in a small sample size, Sar is a guy that we thought he would be. And that's
Yeah.
something he's going to be our next building piece.
Yeah. That's huge for them. That means they're moving in the right direction. They're making some good draft picks. So I actually like watching the Wizards. I know they're not good, but I always find myself kind of tuning in for some reason and seeing what they got going. So I'm excited to see these young guys keep growing, and hopefully they're getting some good pieces of advice from the older guys like CJ and Chris, because they're really good guys to have in the locker room. Not sure how long they'll stick around, but I think they're making a positive impact for sure, at least off the court. So that's going to wrap it up for us. Thanks again, Major, for joining the pod. It was great getting to discuss these teams with you, especially the Heat. Always a good time on that front. Check out Major's work on Friday Reason Sports, guys. If you're a Heat fan and you're listening to this podcast, also Sports Illustrated, he does great work over there. So go check him out and see what he's got going. Really good stuff. And then, of course, on Twitter as well. Love seeing him tweet about the Heat and what's going on in their world for sure. No trade clause. If you guys are interested in our work, it's going to be notradeclause.com. And then over on Twitter, X, _clause, and no trade clause on Instagram. Trying to get some more content going for you guys, so stay tuned for that. We'll be coming back at you guys with some more stuff. So thanks for joining this pod. Hope you enjoyed it, and we hope to see you in the next installment of NTC. Take care, everybody.